Welcome to the Bright Insight podcast. This is a weekly show provided by Brightside Security Lab. We're talking about updates on security regulations, requirements, and perspectives on the current cybersecurity developments. Security is becoming more widely used and important at home, work, school, or in your personal life. Think about GDPR and the Cybersecurity Act. Cybersecurity is a shared responsibility. The more systems we secure, the more secure we all are. Thank you for listening to Bright Insight.
Hi everyone, my name is Meng. I'm Manager of Business Development from Brightside. Today we have a guest, Carlos. Can you introduce yourself a little bit?
Hi, Monk. Yes, thank you for inviting me to the podcast. My name is Carlos Serratos. I'm Director of Strategy, Policy and Advocacy at Brightside.
And today we are going to talk about PSA Certified. And PSA Certified released a report recently, which is called Bridging the Gap. And we are going to give some perspectives today during the discussion. I prepared some questions. First one is that 93% believes that it's likely that security can be a differentiator in the IoT market. Do you agree with that? And will the ultimate winners will be the individual that adopts a security-first approach to the devices? What do you think, Carlos?
There is one thing with regards to security. Security has seemed for a long time as an add-on, like something that is almost nice to have. But the fact is, as we move forward in the future, we will see that security should be something standard. So having evidence that your product has the security capabilities in place, it will differentiate against the substandard products that doesn't meet that new standard in the market. And from that perspective, I think that will bring some opportunity to the developers and manufacturers of products that bring that security capability out of the box to differentiate. And more important, to show to the market their commitment towards security.
It's very interesting that 90% says that, okay, I believe third-party certification is very important. But if we look into the report, there's only 44% are really using external labs, which means that most of them are doing all evaluations in-house. What do you think?
That's an interesting reflection of two things. One of them is the digital maturity. Something that is a fact in the market is that many developers are still in that process of digital maturity. Many of them are still analog companies who are introducing digital services. And therefore, when they introduce a digital product and then they introduce things like security, they may be carrying the security evaluations by themselves. But then again, they lack of that expertise that they need for this kind of activities. And therefore, they see the need that working with an external party is important, is relevant. On the other hand, we need to consider that developers do much more than just security. For example, an OEM who sells IP cameras, they know about image compression and image analysis. And security is not their core expertise. While a third party who focuses on that area, and the security evaluations from those products, they know one thing and they know that thing very good because this is what they do every day. That's the bread and butter, and that's security. So that's why I believe there is a possibility there for cooperation. So for the developers, the fact that they can use an external party, a third party for security evaluations, is good for them in a sense because it's not just showing the security capabilities they have or proving that it's strong enough. That also gives them the opportunity to go further on that digital transformation and to learn from experts in order to implement best practices. So at every interaction of the product just get better.
Yeah, and also on the from that point of view, that they also through doing this, like doing security evaluations and growing their expertise on security, that also reflects the fact that they believe that security can be a differentiator in the IoT market, right?
And it's also that the market itself is asking more and more for evidence of the security. I think at the end of the day, when we think about the 21st century and the digital-oriented economies, when we are very much driven by digital services, and what happened now with COVID is a great example of that, where we depend heavily on digital services in remote operations. There's a huge interest for automation in automotive and manufacturing. It's thanks to the trust built based on the cybersecurity capabilities of the products that we will be enabling that economy, and therefore the interest from the market itself to have that security implementation in the products by default.
Yeah, exactly. And my second question is related to a threat analysis in the design. So 47% carry out a threat analysis in the design of every new product. And when we are talking about smaller companies, this number drops to 33%. Why do you think the percentage of the business that carry out a threat analysis falls as when the company size is smaller?
Well, I guess it's a combination of factors of what we discussed before. As I said before, the digital maturity is a very important element. If you're a large organization, you have more resources to focus on security and digital transformation. While if you are in a small company, of course, you are much more focused on bringing product into the market. Now, if we see the large number of small companies, I create this mental image of startups. So we're talking a lot about startups. And again, for startups, priority number one is to bring products into the market, to get through that initial phase. Once again, security, it's important, but if you put in the context of all the other priorities they have, other priorities come in top.
Yeah, and I think all the reasons in the end is also a reason of money or financial problems, that smaller companies might not have the budget to afford to hiring more security expertise, so that the threat analysis in the product is also, the percentage of doing that is also lower. But in general, do you think this number is also very low? Because even for large companies, we are only talking about like 47% who is carrying threat analysis. What do you think there?
I think we go back to the same, where when the developer doesn't have expertise as their core, when they have security as the core expertise, they should be relying in the collaboration with other parties. That's why, for example, initiatives like CESIF from Global Platform and the PSA certified from the GSA group are a great example how the security capabilities of the components and the platforms that they use for building their products is an excellent way to have an edge, because it's not just having the certainty that they have the right products and products with the right functionality that fit for purpose the specific use cases and applications. It's also that they don't have to develop that capability.
So for CESIP and PSA, if developers are looking at those standards, actually those standards also can give them some direction or guidelines when they are doing implementation of security and also doing security analysis. And that's at the development phase. And then when it comes to when the product is about to release, and those standards can also give them a framework to perform a security evaluation using like trusted third parties, so that they can, in that case, reduce the cost of hiring like security experts.
When they utilize those products, when those products have been pre-evaluated, pre-certified, you're right, you reduce their effort when it comes to the evaluation of their products. Because the party who's going to certify their products, they don't need to verify something that has been already tested. In any case, they will verify only the proper implementation of the security features provided by those components. And that, of course, the developer has done as little as possible to modify that security capability. Mm-hmm. If new capability has been included on the implementation by the end product developer, that's the only thing that needs to be verified on top. And then, of course, the bottom line is that you have time and cost-efficient evaluations for the certification of the end products. And like you said before, they will be able to utilize security capabilities that they don't need to develop themselves, and in many cases, they don't even to understand. My favorite example is in many of the security evaluation frameworks for end products, you have a requirement for cryptography. That's a great example. Mm-hmm. If you talk about cryptography, you're talking about a core capability. It's not easy to get to the point where you say, well, I can develop a good crypto algorithm and I have the proper implementation and I know how to do all the management.
And not all the companies have the experts on crypto.
Exactly. And then if you think about it, even on the self-assessment, there is this question that, do you have the right crypto? I think that's a very difficult question.
Yeah, what is right?
What is right, exactly. Yeah. So, however, if they acquired a platform or a component that has already that crypto by default, that has been evaluated and there is evidence, they will understand, okay, do I have the right crypto for my product? And I will be able to answer that question even if I don't understand what is good, what is bad crypto, how it's implemented, etc. Because I know I'm relying on a third party who has evidence of that capability. And that's good, that's enough.
Yeah, basically they are using an evaluated crypto, so they know it's good. The data shows that 52% of response consider that additional cost of security is the top barrier to improving it. Why do you think that software is cited as a source of failure for security problems? And what can be done to change this?
Okay, that's a question with two answers. In one hand, we are talking about the cost. On the other hand, we are talking about the issues that may come from a software implementation. And I think goes back to the same conversation we had before. If you're going to develop security from scratch, and on top of it, you are not an expert in security, it's going to be expensive and is prone to errors. I mean, there is nothing wrong with that. That's the nature of of the development. You need to go through interaction a number of cycles before you get to the maturity that you need, and you can say my product is robust enough. So obviously, when somebody goes for a first implementation, there will be issues. That's unavoidable. But then we go back to the same conversation. If you think that some of that security capability can be provided by the hardware itself, by the root of trust, and then you relied on that security capability, and you focus right on developing that security functionality and making use of what is available at the hardware or provided by the hardware, you will reduce the risk of failure on the software implementation, and of course, you will reduce also the cost. And here we are talking not just development costs, we are talking about maintenance costs, we are talking about all the indirect costs that comes around implementing security functionalities and maintaining them.
If they, let's say, if the company did not put security when they, let's say, if the company did not consider security when they are designing the product, and if they want to add security later on top of it, the cost might also even be higher, right?
Yeah, a typical example is consider the scenario when there is a company who wants or needs or must certify their end product. And they go to the security evaluation party and they say, well, I have my product is ready, and the only thing I need to bring this product into the market is to have the certification, to have the stamp, so they say. And during the process of the evaluation, something is found, some vulnerability is discovered. That's going to be a very expensive exercise, because it's not just the fact that they will or may need to fix that vulnerability, is the time to market that is delayed and everything else that is implied around that. It will be a lot easier when they address the need for the security implementation and security evidence in an early stage on the development cycle. And they make this implementation part of the product development cycle. So when starting the design, there will be a vulnerability analysis, identify what countermeasures need to be in place proportional to the specific use case, work on those measures. And of course, when you get to the end product, when you have to do the actual evaluation or certification of the product, it's far less effort. And of course, it's way cheaper than trying to fix things at the end, after the product is ready.
I think another way that we have touched this also before is that if they can use certified components, we are going back to the example of crypto. If they can use certified components in their products, then this cost can also be reduced, and also they can avoid such issues, right? What do you think?
Well, in general, and that's a fact in the value chain. The there is a reason why it's called the value chain, is because every party adds value. They add their uniqueness to the development of the product. So it's back to the basics. There is people who will be adding value through the security, and that will be security implemented on the silicon, on the hardware, security that will be implemented in some libraries or SDKs, etc. And there will be a party who will be making use of that value and adding the value of the application on top of it. Mm-hmm. And that's how we build a value chain where everybody is doing what they're good at. Yeah. And that's way more efficient.
It shows that 76% decision makers think governments should play a part in guideline development process for IoT security. Do you agree with that?
I agree in the sense that fragmentation is a big inhibitor for adoption. If I'm a developer and I see hundreds of standards, probably I will wait until I see which standard is the winner, because of course it's very difficult to decide where should I invest time and resources on developing or implementing or applying a particular standard.
And that's the current situation in the IoT market.
The IoT market, I think worldwide, and if you go across the different segments, there should be hundreds. I hear once we are talking in a range of 500 different frameworks. So there is way too much fragmentation. And in that sense, authorities can help us to align those requirements. In the ideal world, if you take a step back and see from the distance all those different frameworks, they are not that different. They ask basically the same. A typical example is on the IoT market. In the IoT devices, by nature, there is communication. The IoT devices, they need to communicate. Wired, wireless, the fact is they need to transport data to someplace. So it's no surprise that in all those frameworks referring to IoT market, you will have requirements like secure communications. And this is one example of the baseline requirements. There are a number of requirements that we can harmonize. And when we look to that harmonization of requirements, of course, depending on the use case, the kind of security, the level of assurance that you need to deliver is different. But at least that gives a very good guideline to the developers on what they need to bring to the market, and therefore it will help to reduce this fragmentation.
Yeah, so in that sense, that it's not the question about if governments or other groups should create more standards, it's more harmonizing them because there is already enough standards.
And you just say one important thing, it's not just governments. Industry itself, they can do it. And I think we have a couple of examples where the industry, they get together and say, look, we need to work aligning those requirements and make a proposal. I've heard this also from the authorities themselves. They say, well, don't look at us. Look for all the answers to the authorities. You, as industry, have an opportunity here to contribute, to collaborate, to help us to guide the requirements and create those standards that harmonize and reduce the fragmentation.
There should be a collaboration between the government and those groups, because on the one hand, those they have expertise in this industry and they knows like how the products works. And on the other hand, governments can be the one who harmonize them and give some guidance or directions of how those standards should be look like in the government level.
Correct.
Okay, thanks, Carlos, for your time today.
Thanks, Mon.
Thank you for listening to Bright Insight. In the next episodes, we will cover different topics, such as the EU Cybersecurity Act, the business case of security evaluations, common criteria, SASIP, IoT, and software-based security. Stay tuned and subscribe on brightside.com.